What's going on, everybody? This is another episode of Temple Talk. I am your host and happy friend, John McLeod. This is the show where we talk about so much, but most importantly, I want to educate you on how to be better, whether it be about your health, whether it be about your wealth, whether it be finance, doesn't matter what it is. But today, you saw the screen. We got a good one. My boy Rob Mooch is in the building. He is my brother on the court. I can't tell you, my right hand man professionally. We've had so many conversations. We've been in so many different battles, and he's been phenomenal throughout the whole thing. He is a Disney recruiter, works at ESPN and Disney recruiter, and he has seen it all. He's interviewed and seen so many different people from so many different levels. And I want you're all going to be blessed for this one. I thank God for the opportunity to talk to him because he's also a brother in Christ, and his story on how he found God is something that's going to be mind boggling and awesome. And I'm sure that a lot of you can identify with it. Make sure that you put all of your questions in the chat. I'm going to put them up on screen, regardless of what the question is. When it comes to business, Rob is one of the best in the business, and he definitely can answer it. I am so incredibly honored to have, you know, have my guy here, and I can't. I'm not gonna say. I'm not gonna say too much more. Let's bring my boy Rob. Rob, what's up, man?
What's up, John? That was a beautiful introduction. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
I
Thank you.
got.
Thank
I
you
got
for
to make sure I do it right. I got to make sure I do it right, man.
love it. I love it. Perfect.
Listen, man. So before before we go any further, I need to establish this. Who are your sports teams?
So as an Eagles fan, I gotta say this in the division, starting with the Saints, big New Orleans Saints fan.
Oh,
Reggie Bush is my favorite college player of all time. So for him, I had to follow the Saints. My wife and I were big North Carolina Tar Heel fans. We got a
okay.
chance to meet Roy Williams a couple of weeks ago, which was a
Oh,
true
nice.
of us. Yeah, yeah, so that was cool. And then for NBA, I'm a Miami Heat fan and a Sixers fan. My boys that are probably watching this are laughing. Allen Iverson was the GOAT for me. So followed him, and then Dwayne Wade was my second GOAT. So they're gonna laugh. They're gonna like this guy switched teams in the NBA twice, but it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, no, it's I can't laugh too much because I was a huge Allen Iverson fan. I was a massive, massive Allen
Yeah.
Iverson fan. So, I chose the Sixers every time in 2K back when it was 2K and 2K1.
Yep.
So
Yep.
people don't know you were OG if you know that he was on the cover for both of them.
That's
So
that's where I got my crossover from. That's where I got my crossover.
speaking of crossovers, what a lot of you don't know, you'll see that if you saw what I posted on LinkedIn, you'll also see one of the comments under it was that, yeah, that's a nice smile, but he got a mean crossover. What you don't know about Rob is I call him chainsaw because his crossover is a deadly thing that will slice through you. He's a baller. So don't let the
Love
smile and the niceness fool you. If you are on the other end playing defense, you are in a world of trouble.
Yeah. If I was 6'2", I'd be in the NBA. I'll stick to that. I'll stick to that.
Man, sure. But Rob, I wanna jump in here.
For sure.
So first, you know what type of conversation this is. We try
Yep.
to educate believers and beyond on not just what we do in our jobs, but also
Mhm.
who we are and how we came
Yeah.
to God and how God has blessed us with the different levels that we have. So right off the bat, I want to know, how did you find God?
Yeah. So growing up, Italian household, I'm a Catholic, right? Growing up, went to church, got my communion, got my confirmation. I was just talking about you before we joined on this call. When I was 14, 15, home one day from school, might have been a snow day, flipping through the channels, and Joyce Meyer is on TV. I'm like,
Oh yeah,
who's this? Who's Joyce? Like, who is she talking about? There's nothing on, right? You know how it's at 1 o'clock when
hmm
the sports isn't on.
I think we made.
That freeze.
Yeah, there you go. You're back.
Oh, yeah. So I started listening to Joyce, and she was talking through a sermon about like trials and tribulations. And at that point in my life, I was probably going through something, whether in school, maybe on the basketball court or something. And she shared some good insight. So I started following Joyce, and lead into I turned 16, I turned 17, I'm going to college. and trying to get an internship with ESPN. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I was listening to a sermon on Apple Podcasts, right? And this was before podcast was even a thing. And she shared a message that said, you're probably praying for something every day. God's working to get it for you, but at this moment, he's going to test you. He's going to put you in a situation and pull it from you and see, how you react. And I had an interview for an internship with ESPN, dream job, right? So go for the interview, didn't get the job, and immediately I was like, did Joyce know I was interviewing for ESPN? Like, that's crazy. And I broke down. I was emotional because the door. I was at the door and I just couldn't get through the door, right? But I was like, I got to go back to Joyce because she said something about that. And from there, daily, it's a ritual for me on the way to the gym, on the way to wherever I'm driving in the morning. I pull up Joyce Meyer and I listen to her. And now I got a free trial of satellite, so I've been listening to Joel Osteen a little bit. And then one of my best friends, Duran Ross, I don't know if he's joining, but he introduced me to Pastor Bronner down in Atlanta. So I'll listen to Pastor Bronner a little bit too. So.
That's awesome. I love that, your story is proof that God shows up in the tough moments.
Yeah.
Your story is also proof that regardless of where you are, what you're looking for in reality, he shows up. He shows up anyway. Yeah. One of my favorite parts of your story is that you weren't looking, but when you did find it, it was something that blew your mind. And that is exactly what God does in so many different respects, whether you're here to get some information on, how to get a job or what aspects you need to, things you need to throw into your bucket. It doesn't matter. The most important thing is, at the end of the day, the first thing we're talking about here right off the bat is how God changed your life and how you found him. You said you were a Catholic and one day you found God in a new way. And that is one of the most powerful things anybody else can take away. Because you went back questioning, saying, well, how in the world could she know? Or AKA, how did God must be hearing me when I'm talking.
Yeah. We just shared. So 2 days ago, I'm driving to the gym, and Joel Osteen was talking about the pains you go through in life, right? And a little backstory: my wife and I are expecting a child, and he said, "Thank you, appreciate it." He said, he compared life to a childbirth, right? When a woman's in labor, she's going to have whatever. Hopefully it's quick, but it could be 10, 20, 30 hours of labor, and it's all that pain that you're going through. But he said, once that child arrives, that joy that you're going to get, like, erases that whole pain. Okay, I'm not giving birth, so maybe it's not that simple, but you just think about it and you're like, wow, like, how crazy is that, you know, and you put yourself in those situations too, right? Like, that joy is going to come. But so just even hear him give an analogy of childbirth when, in February we're going to be having a baby is pretty cool just to hear it. Like, how does he know? Like, how did Joe know?
But is God working through it to let you know that, hey, I got you.
You'll be okay. You'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly. I got you, and you got this.
Yeah,
and that's and that is and that's the beautiful
when
thing.
When my wife and I were trying to have a baby, she would see a cardinal. A cardinal would fly in, like a blue jay or a cardinal, and she would always be like, that's her grandparents, like, saying, like, it'll be okay. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you would see symbolisms and stuff, like a blue jay landing on. And the crazy thing is, it would land, and she would call her sister, like, oh, I saw the blue jay today. And then her sister would be like, oh, there's one in the backyard too. Like, just like, what? Like, it's crazy that they would put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. Yeah. I love it. I love it. So now, you linked up with God's direction for you now. Mm-hmm. And God told you he was going to test you, and he tested you.
He tested me.
Or not so much test, but set you on the path. Because when you think about now that, okay, I didn't get it, and it wasn't so much a test as it was a preparation.
Yeah.
Because I want you to go into the transition from, okay, I didn't get this internship. Now what?
Yeah, for sure. I'll give you a whole backstory. So,
sure.
In high school, I knew I wasn't going to make it to the NBA, right? I was like, I'm not going to get there. I grew up in Connecticut. ESPN was in the backyard. But that's where I want to work. So I used to tell people all the time in high school, I'm going to work for ESPN. And then you would hear it. You're never going to get there. My relative works there. It's too hard to get in. Then, right, the negative comments. So you start to, and Durant used to say this all the time to me, it's the devil talking, right? Like there's people trying to make you, bring you down. So finally got an opportunity in college where I got an interview for an internship. Mind you, I never interviewed for a real job in my life. My first job was washing dishes, and pretty much said, when could you start, right? I didn't really have to interview for that job. So I interviewed, it was a group interview. I'm super nervous, dream jobs at your hand. And I remember Aaron Coleman said, and those of you guys know Aaron Coleman, he used to work at ESPN. He said, what do you do on your free time? I don't even play video games like this. I was like, oh, I play video games. I don't know why I said it. It just came out of my mouth. And immediately I hung up the phone. I was like, I didn't get this job. Didn't get it. I was crushed. I was so heartbroken. But at that moment, I was like, I could either cry about this, which I did, or I could, try to figure out another job. And somebody in my class, and we were talking about this, the power of networking at Southern, was like, hey, I just got an internship with MTV. Would you be interested in interning? They're looking for interns. So put my name in a hat, and I got the opportunity to intern there. And I'm so appreciative that I didn't get that internship at ESPN at the beginning, because from there, I sacrificed going to MTV 3 to 5 days a week, unpaid, right, from New Haven, which is super expensive. But it opened up so many doors and so many opportunities at MTV. I met great people, famous people. Jay-Z was one of the people I met, which I was like astonished, right? But I got a chance to do things I would have never have done if I got that internship at ESPN. Went down to Disney, did an internship with them. Again, every way I was applying for jobs at ESPN and kept getting rejected. Like, now I got MTV in my resume, applied to ESPN, got it rejected. Went to Disney. The only reason I went to Disney was I was like, oh, they own ESPN. I could apply internally. I was applying internally, reaching out to recruiters, and still getting rejected. I was like, this is crazy. Like, what is happening? Came back home. Again, the power of networking. Networked with somebody who told me, hey, News Channel 8 in New Haven is interviewing. And I was unemployed for 5 months when I got back. That was one of the hardest points in my life. Like, all my boys are getting jobs, they're getting new cars and whatever the case may be. And I'm like sitting at home eating Oreos and trying not to gain too much weight while trying to apply for jobs, and still, praying. But you start to get that frustrated, right? Like, God, when is it going to be my turn? Right? When is it going to be my turn? I'm seeing people get jobs at ESPN. I know people that are getting jobs at ESPN, and I can't even get a job at the local television stations, right? But that door opened for me, and that's when I started opening opportunities at ESPN. I started interviewing with them again. I interviewed, I counted before the chat, 5 times, 5 interviews with ESPN, different positions, didn't get any of them. It was that 5th interview that one of the managers was like, all right, I think they were just sick of me applying. They're like, all right, we're just gonna give you a shot. And that's where my career skyrocketed. But it was that lead up that really, it was about 2.5 years after graduation of applying, not getting a job, applying, not getting a job, that got me there. And it was a test. It was a true test. So
that right there, that I know that hit home. That hits home for a lot of people.
yeah,
I know it hits home for me. That's a different type of
yeah,
challenge. That's a different type of trial.
yeah.
You know, when God allows trials to happen to you, there is a different appreciation for when you actually do get it.
It's crazy. I was making less money at my first job at the news station than I was washing dishes, right? And I was so afraid to even ask what the salary was. I didn't even ask for an interview process. I just wanted the job because I was like, if I can keep building my resume, eventually I'm going to get there. But I shared a story actually with my boss the other day. I was working 5 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then from 3:30 p.m. in New Haven, Connecticut. And then I would drive to West Hartford, Connecticut from 3:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. to work at Apple because I was working part-time at both jobs. And Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I would sleep in the car on lunch breaks at Apple, and then I would drive home, get home at like 1 a.m, and then I have to be up at 3 o'clock for the next shift at News Channel 8. And I remember there was a time I was driving to work, fell asleep on the highway, crashed my car, and my mom was like, God, this is God telling you, you need to slow down. You need to get a job somewhere that's going to be sufficient enough to like cover both because you can't be doing both. And that's when it clicked for me. I was like, this is the breaking point. Like, this is the breaking point of me, like, working both jobs and just going crazy like that. So that was that. My mom, as soon as my mom told me that, I was like, yeah, I gotta slow down. I gotta slow down. Yeah. I was working 7 days a week. 7 days a week.
That's insane, because everybody in this room now can understand and know. Yeah. We know the rhetoric of you got to grind your way to the top.
Yeah.
You got to do what everybody's not willing to do to get what everybody doesn't have.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in that does destructive things to your spiritual health first, and then to your mental health second, and then your physical health third.
Exactly.
Because now you're trying to support and fund this dream that you have, and to prove to yourself that you can do it. And so many things are falling apart, and even though you're continuing to pray, there is that reality, that time in between when God answers. We always preach about when God answers. We always shout when God answers. And
that time.
We need to hear more about that in between. And you were in an in between of what everyone else calls a rock and a hard place, because it was like, hey, this is the preparation to receive what you've been praying for.
You know what's crazy is those long rides. I'm driving an hour. I'm from Waterbury, right? So driving an hour to New Haven, driving an hour to West Hartford, driving an hour back home. And then at 3 a.m, when you're on the road and you're alone, you have a lot of thoughts that are going through your head, right? You're like, you see deers drive on the highway. Like, I didn't even know deers existed on the highway. This is crazy. But one thing that Joyce said to me was, or in one of the conversations, was, I wrote this down with Deuteronomy, and when they said they took a 40-year journey that should have taken 11 days, right? And you start to think, like, why did it take so long? Why did it take so long for these guys to get where they needed to go? But it was that trust, right? Like, they didn't have trust in where they were going, so they kept complaining. And that's what I tell my wife this all the time. Like, we can't complain about the things we got, because there's people that would switch spots with us in a heartbeat, right? There's people that want to sit in our seat in a heartbeat, and we're not being complacent either. We want to continue to grow, but that I don't want to take a 40-year journey when it only needs to take 11 days, right? So whatever I could do to keep this fast track going, that's what I'm doing. But to your point, when you're in that moment, though, when now I look back at it, I'm like, I'm glad I went through that journey, because it helped me prepare me for where I am now. But when I was in that moment, I was like, this sucks. Like, this absolutely
that's reality.
Sucks. Yeah. Even one last thing to that, I think the one that adds to it, because you talk about this, and I actually got this from you with the mental health. Back in 2011, 2012, 2013, mental health wasn't like, people weren't really talking about mental health. But to add to that, you start to compare yourself to other people. And I actually posted on LinkedIn a few months ago of, when you're in a trial, get off social media. Sometimes I'll be off social media for a while, because you see people post things, right? Like, oh, I just bought a brand new BMW, or I just went on vacation, or just got a job at ESPN. But you don't really realize what they've been sacrificing to get to that point. And you just start comparing yourself immediately to them. Like, why do I have that? Right. So that adds to the mental health aspect, which is too ridiculous. I try to tell my nephew this all the time. Like, stop comparing yourself to people. It's two different lives. Lives.
No, there's two messages in what you said. The first one is, to go back, is some people are taking 40 years when it should have taken 11. That's a powerful one, because when you think about where we are as professionals, or where we want to be, or even if it's not professional, maybe it's in your personal life, and you start to think, well, I'm not here, or I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have this skill, I don't have this money, I don't have this, and you start to do what you're talking about in the second part, which is the comparison. You start to take away from the good. You start to fail to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living.
Exactly.
That's when you start failing, because it's in those motions where it's like, this could have taken you 11 days, but it took you 40 years because you didn't believe.
Yeah. You know what's funny is...
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, what's funny? So Stacey Williamson, for those who don't know Stacey, she's famous on Twitter, right? I used to sit on the train ride from Metro North to New Haven, which is like an hour and 45 minutes, or to New York, and I used to tweet at her like, "Oh, I want." She was recruiting on a certain. I'm not gonna say what the position was. She was recruiting on a certain position. I used to tweet at her like, "I'm really interested in working at Disney or ESPN." She would never respond to me. One Sunday, she actually replied to one of my comments, and I was like, "Stacy actually answered me." Like I took literally like 2 hours to write a reply to her because I like typed it up, deleted it. It was like that Herm Edwards thing, like don't hit send. So did I freeze again?
You're there. You're good.
So I typed up a perfect response. She never responded to me, but I screenshotted it. So crazy, right? Stacy doesn't know who I am. She's interviewing for a position that again, I don't want to say what it is at the moment. And now when I got to ESPN, there was a whole different position that she was recruiting for. And I'm so glad that I didn't get that job, because if I got that position that Stacy was recruiting for, I would have left the company, right? It was a job that I didn't want to, like, once I found out what that position actually entailed, I was like, oh, thank God I didn't get that job. Again, fast forward, Stacy's she's a woman of God. She prays, and so those of you guys know her. She's a Christian as well. And one of the things that we sat when I got to HR finally, the person I was tweeting and was so happy that she responded back to me actually became my teammate. And now she's one of my closest friends, right? So to put it, and then when I first started, I sent her a screenshot of the tweet, and she was like, "When did you tweet me?" I was like, "Look at all these tweets I used to send you. Never answered it." But it was God like saying, like, "This is not the job for you. Now, if you be patient, I'll get you the one that you need." But that time when you're applying and she's not answering, you get frustrated, like, "Why is he not opening this door?" But it's because he has something else better for you planned. You know, that's what I was like. It's crazy that at that time you think about it, you're like, this is frustrating.
Yeah.
But the circle of life. Now Stacy's like one of my good friends, and it's funny. I always joke with her like, "You never answered my texts or tweets. You never answered." So.
You know why? This is why this for everyone listening. Please understand what Rob just said. Just because you're not where you want to be right now doesn't mean you're not going to be there ever. Hear it again. Just because you're not where you want to be right now doesn't mean you're not going to be there ever. And the distinction between where you are right now and where you're going to be, they're completely separate things. What is the distinction? That distinction is this: where you are now is preparing you for where you're going to be, where God needs you to be. It may not be exactly where you want to be. Everybody dreams about being a millionaire while they're poor. But it is the process of becoming a millionaire that actually makes you and keeps you a millionaire, because then you start to understand what they actually do. The process of getting your next job has nothing to do with who you are now and everything to do with who you are going to become. Exactly. So because you're getting a no now doesn't mean you're getting your no means forever. It's not forever. It just means God is just saying not yet. And what Rob just said is, it could take you 11 days or it could take you 40 years. It determines on your faith and how much you believe. So now, Rob, I want to get, because now your story of how you got to ESPN, it's the resilience in that is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And people are going to resonate with the resilience, but I want to make sure we hammer home the faith that you had, even though you were frustrated.
Yeah. No.
Even though you were frustrated, you still had faith, and you still kept taking action, even though you kept saying no's. You still kept praying. You still kept supplementing that prayer with action, prayer and supplication, and now you eventually got there. So, talk about when you arrived to ESPN and the difficulties when you first got there.
Yeah. To be honest with you, when I got the job offer, again, all that hard work, right? I always compare it to the NBA draft, right? You watch all these guys sacrifice. All these guys sacrifice waking up at 4 a.m. to go practice, and they go to school and all this stuff. Real quick, if I could touch on what Naomi just said there. Not only will he open a door for you, but sometimes he'll close the door on you if it's not an opportunity he doesn't want you to. So Durant. So I talked to this about Durant. I keep mentioning his name, but you hear people get fired from jobs and they're like, this was my dream job. I wanted to be there. But then it turns out that the next job they get is even better and it blossoms even further, right? So sometimes he'll pull you out of a position because you're getting either straying away from him too much when he's like, all right, I gave you this luxury. Now you're taking this and you're going on your own path. So I'm gonna close that door and they're gonna figure out how do we get you back on track with him, but then also open up another door that's even better. So to Naomi's point there, that's so true.
Absolutely.
But I would say one of the biggest struggles is you come in and you don't want to make a mistake, right? I'm like, I'm here, like the door is here. I worked so hard to get to this position. It's a huge corporation. I want to take full advantage of every opportunity, but I don't want to make a mistake, right? Because reputation is strong. So I was literally the first like 6 months just treading on eggshells. Hi, yes, sir. No, ma'am. Thank you. Blah, blah, blah. I still do that now, but I was so scared to like, I was leaving house. I lived 15 minutes away from work. I was leaving like 45 minutes early and just sitting in the parking lot because like, I don't want to be late. But if the car breaks down, like I wasn't calling out. I was just so afraid to like make a mistake because I didn't want the opportunity to pull away from me. But one of the things I did was I looked back and was like, all the people that said you won't get there, like I smiled. I was like, you know what? I got there. Like the people that are like, you're not going to get to ESPN. I'm like, all right, I'll get there in some capacity. But that was the hardest thing, was just not making a mistake because I didn't want to lose the opportunity in that sense. So.
And how did you overcome that feeling of, that sense of a little bit of imposter syndrome, a little bit, where you kind of feel like, do I deserve to be here? I don't want to make a mistake. How did you overcome those?
It's funny. Joyce had a sermon I was listening to on the way to work.
Come on, Joyce.
She was like, God's not going to give you something that you can't handle, right? And I was like, that hit me there, and I was like, all right, like there was a live. I was in production, so I was cutting out video elements, working in a control room. I was working on high profile shows, and I'm so afraid, like I shouldn't even be in this room. Like people were coming from Full Sail University and Syracuse University. I'm coming from Southern Connecticut State University, where I barely was able to leave state, right, for any of that stuff. So I was just like, don't make a mistake. So to your point, I just had trust in myself and trust in God. I was like, I'll just pray every day before I get to work. Hey, just guard my steps. And then I took it day by day, like learn the trainings, learn what they're teaching you, and just continue to progress. And the same thing, right? Like you got to build on your reputation. You got to continue to build on your reputation. But the biggest thing was knowing that he had my back. He meaning God, right? Like God had my back on stuff.
So we often forget. We often feel that just because God is silent, He is absent, and that's inaccurate. Let me put that out there first. That's inaccurate. Silence doesn't mean absence. So when you say that, you dug into the fact that, okay, God answered again. He was using Joyce Myers a lot in your life because he realized, whether or not it could be, he saw that you were really receiving every time you heard you were in something struggling, and now you heard Joyce. But it was the notion of just because he's silent doesn't mean he's absent, is what you learned in the middle of those tough times.
For sure.
So now you're in it, you're getting a little bit of your footing, you're feeling more like you belong, and you're still a little worried at certain times, but you're you're comfortable. You're not showing up 45 minutes early, you're showing up 20 minutes early now.
Yep.
And people start to see your work ethic when you're in it now. Mm-hmm. How when somebody enters the corporate world, is different now, because you were in production and then you transitioned over into the corporate sector.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that transition and how you made that, and what were decisions leading up to that.
For sure. So I started in production, and at the same time I was in production, I was teaching at a high school. Again, I still had the mentality of you have to keep working multiple positions, right? I still do that now. I still teach at another university. My friends make fun of me, like, this guy's always working. But I was teaching at a high school, and when I got to production, I was starting to lose the mindset of like, I want to give back. I want to help other people. God helped me. How do I continue to help out? So when I was teaching at the high school, I was trying to put plans in place for them to come see ESPN or for them to like meet people. But you know how it is, the red tape
Yeah.
within ESPN is super, super tough to make some of that stuff happen. So I worked to move into a role that was in human resources called a recruiting coordinator. Again, when you talk about God's plan and God's ideas, like I couldn't even picture this. So I signed up for this. It's called an observation program through an employee resource group, and I just picked HR just because I was like, which team could help me get there, right, to help out other people. So I picked HR, and I couldn't shadow, I couldn't observe because everything was confidential. But they let me network with other people. Again, we'll talk about networking. And at the same time, I was networking. A role became available called a recruiting coordinator. So that role is basically you're managing background checks, you're setting up orientations, you're scheduling interviews, very administrative, right? And I applied for the job. I was like, there's no way I'm getting this job. I have no experience in HR. Like I'm a video editor and a director and camera operator and working in. There's no way. And he opened the door for me. And when they called me, I thought they were calling me to decline me for the job. Really, when Beth Friedman, who gave me the job, she called me. She's like, "Hey, we want to offer you the job." At first, I thought she was joking, so I was like, "All right, cool." And then she's like, "No, I'm serious." And then that's when I was like, "Holy crap!" Like this opportunity is going to transition. It's going to change my whole life. I knew it because I'm working 6 p.m. to 3 in the morning. That was my shift. Tuesday, Wednesday was off, and I'll switch into a completely different shift, which was Monday through Friday. 9 to 5. But I knew my path was to be a recruiter. Like that's what I was like. I want to be a recruiter. And the reason why, it wasn't because of the schedule. It wasn't because of any of that. It was because I knew there was a bunch of Johns and Robertos and everybody else's that were trying to get into the company, and they were not having any luck. And I was like, how do I give back? Like, how can I build up the next generation to get him there, right? So one of the biggest joys of my job is when I call and make an offer and people break down crying. Like the communication I have with them, the whole process, they build so much trust in you, right? But to be able to change somebody's life and give them a job when no one else believed in them. Like some people would say that, like, no one believed in me and you gave me that shot. It's like, it reminds me of back in like, it always reminds me of like, this is where I was 8 years ago trying to get into this position, right? But I always just say, for the one person I do make a dream come true, there's 5 others that I got to call and say, hey, you didn't get this job. But it's through those conversations that I keep the same advice, right? Hey, I was in your same boat. I got declined 5 times. Like, let's stay in contact. If this is where you want to be, we'll make it happen. But you got to stay in contact, and you just got to help yourself, help me help you, right? Like, do what you got to do, get the feedback you need to get, and keep growing. Because the corporate environment is tough, man. Like it's super tough. It could be a lot of red tape. You're trying to get to different places and organizations, and you hear a lot of no's. It's like there's another no, there's another no, there's another no. But eventually, one of those no's is going to turn into a yes, maybe, and that's when you hear that, and you're like, I'm going all in on that yes, maybe. So.
I love that. I'm so thank you for saying that, and and to Kaneo, be strong, hold on. It's gonna happen. You got support here on Temple Talk and Inspirational. So just continue to reach out, continue to wherever we can help, we can. It's going to happen. And if you didn't hear anything else that Rob just said, is he saw he saw a desire. He had a desire in himself and saw an ability and a chance to help. And he took everything that he was going through and started to, hey, how can I help somebody else? How can I give back? How can I support? How can I open up the door? And now he finds the biggest joy in giving people the offer, walking people through the process. It's one of the main reasons why I wanted to have Rob here, and I'm honored to have him, is because you could hear it and you could see it in his spirit. He always wanted to help. And one of the hardest things that he knows is getting a no over and over and over again. And what we hear now from beginning stories to this point is all those no's that Rob got was preparing him to help you get through your no.
Yeah.
So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever is not going right, whoever won't listen, whoever won't give you a chance, just hold on. Because at the end of the day, one no could be thrown into the pile with the others, but it's the one yes that separates you from all the other. All those other no's don't mean anything once you get your yes. And
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes God puts you through the process of no over and over again so that you can build up your strength and your faith in Him to receive the yes. It's
Yeah.
not going to happen when you want it to happen because ultimately you are not ready to receive it and get the yes. When
Yeah.
you are ready to receive the yes, then things start to change and your
For
whole
sure.
attitude and mentality change. Rob, speak to that.
Yeah. So two things on that point. The first one is you talk about saying no's and turning that into a yes. I want to keep. I got to do this. I got to do a better job of this. I want to keep stats. I'm all about telling stories through data. I'm in my mind. I think all the people I've said no to first, and then eventually got a job second time or third time with ESPN or Disney. I think they're better performers than the ones that got the job the first time. Right? I could tell you countless occasions of people that I just had a story Friday. There's this girl. She's been interviewing for a while. The first time I called her, she broke down when I told her she didn't get the job. I was staying in contact. The role's gonna be coming. I promise you. I called her. I was like, hey, I just want to let you know that a role came and we're going to be offering you a job for it. The same cry was the same cry when she got the yes. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so excited. Like, I'm going to do everything I can to be successful in this position. And it was immediate. Like, she knew, right? She knew that the door was there and it shut on her. And now it opened up again. And she's not going to let that opportunity go by her from that standpoint too. But it also goes to all the people you've heard, right? Oprah, Michael Jordan gotten cut twice from his basketball team. Everybody. Everybody you think of that. Steve Jobs got fired from his job. Kanye West, they told him that he wasn't going to make it. Right? Like it's just crazy. All these people you hear of that didn't get the positions that they're in now, and you're like, if they would have quit at that moment, there would have been no Oprah. Michael Jordan wouldn't have been Michael Jordan, right? We want to be in our positions now because we've gotten told no multiple times. So if I would have listened to the same person that said, you're not going to get to ESPN, I promise you that, I would probably be working at somewhere else, right? If I listened to him, right? But it's just moving through that no.
And you chose to believe God instead of believing the people that knew nothing about what they were talking about.
Here's why.
Yeah.
People don't know your passions. They don't know what's in your actual heart and what's in your desire, right? Like you talk about mental health. Kobe Bryant, this. Allen Iverson's my favorite player. I still think I'll go down arguing that he's better than. We won't get into that conversation, but Kobe
don't do
it. But Kobe said this in practice to Jeremy Lin. He's like, "You guys are soft as I'm not gonna say a word, Charmin, right?" And it was because he's trying to prepare them for when times get tough, right? You never want to have a doctor do surgery on you if they never failed learning how to do a surgery, right? Tom Brady's never going to be in a championship game if he never failed in practice or threw an interception during a game, right? Goes back to film, watches it, figures it out. You don't want a pilot flying you on their first attempt if they never faced turbulence before. You don't want them flying you across the country, right? So you put your trust in other people without even knowing who they are. We jump on planes all the time and we jump on Metro North to go to New York City, but you don't know the trainings they've been through or the no's that they've gone through or the difficult situations that they have at practice in to get to where they are now, right? So you gotta not listen to them. Just be like, I'm gonna put my trust in you and have faith in that's gonna happen.
It's building you. It's the chat is blowing up with the same notions. The no's are preparing you for your yes, and it's not a no. It's just a not yet. It's not a no. It's just just a not yet. And if it's not yet, okay, what do I need to do to get to that yes? And that's what we're going to get into now. So, you're talking about networking. What are the best ways to network and start building a relationship with someone that is desiring to get into a certain field?
Yeah, I teach at a university right now, and actually, this unit we talked about this. You know him, John. So Leon Carter was a senior leader at the organization. He left. He went to that. He's amazing. He's an amazing guy. Him and I were having a conversation. We supported the Rodent Fellows. For those of you guys who don't know, the Rodent Fellows is an internship program where individuals come in to get to work on a podcast at ESPN and write articles. And I was trying to figure out ways to get them to stay with the company so that another company doesn't, pick them up. So I talked to Leon, and I was saying, like, we need to start a mentorship program for them so that they could grow. And so they could grow. And he goes, you didn't even scratch the surface with it. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I just posted this on my LinkedIn the other day. He's like, networking leads to mentoring, right? And everybody knows that, right? You network with somebody, eventually it turns into a mentorship and then that's where I thought it stopped. He was like, it doesn't stop there. And I was like, explain. And he's like, networking leads to mentoring, but mentoring leads to sponsorship, right? It's who's going to be talking about you when the door is closed and you're not in the room. Who's going to be talking about you? Who's going to be giving you advice, or who's going to be being your advocate for you when you're not in that position, right? Or not in that room. And that's who you need. You need a sponsor who you grew from that networking conversation, became your mentor, and now is saying, we want this person. We want John to be working for us in this company. We want him to be on this project. And always say yes to an opportunity, right? My mentor told me this. You never know where a yes might go. We talk about no's. You might get an idea of like, hey, you got to work on this project. You got to work extra hours. You got to do whatever it is. Just say yes, because you never know who's going to see your work. You never know who's going to sponsor you. Like, wow, he did a great job on this project. He didn't want to do it. Let's give him another opportunity for this. So those are the two biggest things. Of networking is so key. It's not really what you know. It's really who you know in companies. So.
And now we've heard that so much, and what you gave us is the tidbit of let's and yeah, Mama, that is deep. Let's that goes so many different levels that I want people to understand, because when you leave this show today, I want you all to leave empowered to take different kinds of action. The first action is stay before God and continue to pray, continue to communicate. But also when you're praying, believe when you're praying. Believe it. With everything you got in you, it's going to happen. You have to believe it. The second thing is understanding that your no's are preparing you for the yes. And when an opportunity comes, you say yes, even though it doesn't look like how you imagined it. Yeah. And now the third thing is the networking, keeping a relationship going so that when the opportunity does come, you are in the front of somebody's mind. Oh, I just had a conversation with this person. They might be a good fit for this. Or, hey, a secret one that, I learned from a camera operator. It was an old vet when I used to work for MSG Varsity. And he said to me, he goes, never forget, he goes, John, you got a lot of oomph. He said, but what's going to take you really, really far is if you say yes for free. Yeah. And at the time, I was like, for free? Like, what do you mean? And he says to me, when you volunteer and say, hey, look, I see you were working on this project. Is there anything I can do? Do you need any outside help for free? I just want to come. Can I shadow you? We often use that term. Different opportunities will open it up. It's a different world, but there's still opportunities that could come in.
Yeah.
When we start to think about those opportunities, Rob, go into the type of opportunities that people can use and can then start to manifest a networking, mentoring, sponsorship type of relationship.
We're all on it. Social media, right? Facebook, LinkedIn is the most important one, right? That's your resume that could tell you your story. I can't tell you how many times, I tell this to my students all the time, you always want to keep your LinkedIn updated because people are looking at your profile. Again, it talks about when you're not looking, who's going to be advocating for you and stuff. Someone might say, hey, go check out John's profile. Just check out the content he's been creating. So people are viewing your stuff. I could view people's LinkedIn without them knowing it because of the credentials I have on LinkedIn. So if I'm trying to find a position, I'll reach out to people like, hey, I have an opportunity for you. Would you be interested in this role? But to your point about networking on LinkedIn, it can't be always a give me approach, right? It's the same thing with God. You can't always, Joyce said this, you can't always go to him when you need something, right? Just, you crash your car, you're looking to buy a new one, you can't go to him. You've lost your job, now you're praying for it. But when you got the job, you weren't praying for him after that, right? You stopped praying after you got the position. Or, your team's going to the NBA playoffs and you're praying for them to win, they lose, you stop praying for them. But whatever the case may be, if you stop praying for things, it's the same thing with networking. If John and I are in a networking conversation, what can I do to help you on what you grow? So, right, it's each one teach one. So as you grow, I grow. Right, be that advocate so I can help give you stuff for free. If you're working on something, how can I help make that contribution for you? There's people that will reach out to me just to reach out for a job. If I say, hey, if we don't have anything available, that's the last time I'll hear from them. And then they'll reach out, hey, do you have Disney tickets? like you only reaching out when you need something.
Yeah, exactly.
but hey, if someone's reaching out kind of continuously, like, hey, I'm just checking in on you. How are you doing? Or whatever the case may be. Or, hey, Rob, I saw you working on this position. I have someone who I could refer them to. I'm going to take okay, we're networking back and forth in that conversation. So networking can't be a one-way street. It's got to be a two-way street. It's got to be a two-way street there. So,
absolutely. Iron sharp as iron. Yeah, exactly.
Iron
Iron sharp as iron. Let's jump back to that real quick. Tidbit. Golden nugget. He just gave it to you. Update your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Update it. So what else? Yeah. What else can you do besides say, "Hey, I worked here and here"? Yeah. Start putting your content there. Start showing your skills. What have you worked on that you're proud of? Put your because you see what? Did you hear what Rob just said? He has the capabilities to view your profile without you even knowing that your profile is being viewed. Yeah. So if he's saying he can see it, regardless if you know he's seen it or not, what should that tell you?
Yeah.
You need to be on it. You have to update it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I was working on a role for an editor for a podcast, actually. This is like 2 years ago. I'm a big fan of podcasts. I listen to them every morning. At the end of each podcast, they'll tell you, here's the editors of the podcast, here's the producers of the podcast. I was like, wow, this was edited really well. I looked up all the podcasters and editors on LinkedIn. One of them had a LinkedIn profile. I reached out to him for a conversation, right? Even if it didn't go anywhere, it was still a matter of, again, you might not even realize it, but someone's listening, someone heard your name, someone's checking you out without even you knowing, right? And to her point about iron sharpens iron, you got to surround yourself with these people that are like-minded, right? There's some people that I've associated with that have very, very negative mindsets, right? We can enter a room and they're the ones that are going to pull the energy, right? They're energy vampires. I shared the book with you yesterday, John. They're energy vampires, right? I don't want to network with them. I don't want to communicate with them because if you're not in the same wavelength and you're not trying to be positive in some situation, everything can't be negative in life. Like, it just can't be. Like, there's too much positive that goes on that it can't be too negative. So
my grandmother used to say, you become that which you join yourself with. If you join yourself with negativity, you are going to be negative and pessimistic. And and everything that you attract is going to be negative, and the world is going to continue to beat you down because that's what you are wanting. That's what you're pulling. But if you switch that and start believing what God is telling you about yourself, I desire you to prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers, meaning He wants success for you. I know the thoughts. I think God told you He sees greatness for you. If you believe that every single day and you keep going, then things start to change around. Yeah. I want to jump back to the LinkedIn, because what is the most powerful thing here is that it is your social media resume. It is your resume on social media. Back in the days, I still grew up, when I was growing up, I still had to print out my resume and present it. I'm not old by any means, and neither are you, but we still had to bring a paper resume. And in a folder, when I got the job, I had the resume, and I came to find out like everybody in the department saw my resume, and I was like, oh wow. The LinkedIn is now your resume. We are in the digital age where it's your resume, so you must constantly update your resume. But the powerful notion of LinkedIn is this: you can update your resume with the content that you're doing. If you want to be on air, start going out and shooting things with your phone. Anything is possible. God has given you so many different tools to be successful. And Rob just gave you a powerful one. Update your LinkedIn with what you want to do and what you want to be. Show the skills that you have. If you want to be on air, you have to also be able to write, be able to produce, be able to edit. He contacted somebody that wasn't even looking for a job. And we don't know if they were looking for one.
Yeah.
But he
Yeah.
saw something amazing. He heard something amazing and reached out to them. Now,
Yeah.
Rob,
Yeah.
go ahead. You want to say something about
I was
this?
gonna say the biggest thing with that too is on LinkedIn, we talked about joining like-minded groups. There's say you want to be on there, you could probably join a group that's entry-level students looking to be on there, right? There's gonna be people in there advocating for giving advice. Here's this new digital software system you should be working on, or here's a new edit Premiere that you should be figuring out, or whatever the case may be. Use LinkedIn to join those groups to network with individuals so they can mentor you and then eventually sponsor you into a position, right? It's a circle of life from that standpoint.
Yeah, and that another gem. I hope y'all are writing these down, man. I know y'all write it down while you're in there.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Now staying on the same LinkedIn vein, I want to know, as a recruiter, what do you look for on people's LinkedIn? What makes them attractive?
Yeah. So the assignment that's actually due for my students is actually their LinkedIn profile. They just had it completed. A couple different things, right? One, update your most relevant work experience, right? Like wherever it sucks when I reach out to somebody who has a video editing experience and I'm like, hey, you're recently a video editor for Turner. I love, and they're like, oh no, I'm an accountant now with Stanley Black and Decker. It's like, oh man, like now you're just wasting conversations, right? So update your stuff. The second thing is like your skills section. In your skills, you could list out so we tell our students, list out as many skills that you are qualified for and people can vouch for you. Because when I'm looking for people, it's similar to when you're looking up flights, right? You could look up where you're leaving from. You could look at the price tags, and it'll sort and filter to specific things. Same thing when you're shopping for shoes, right? I'm the shoe size. I want these colors. I want this brand, and I want this price range. When I'm looking for candidates, I could say I want people to have producing experience, video editing experience, works at these companies, and is in this geographical location, and it'll filter down applications. So if you could be the best producer in the world, but you don't have anything updated on it, you're not going to show up in the search, right? So that's super important there. And then lastly is being engaging, right? The people that are engaging in content, liking things, sharing things, responding back to people's questions. You will see, Stacy makes fun of me for this all the time. I'll write commenting for reach just because once you comment, your network can see what you've commented on. And I want to help somebody else get a job, even if it's with Turner or whoever other company. Like if we're not hiring and I know someone who's looking for a podcast producing position, I'm going to post it and hopefully somebody who I've connected with in the past for a podcast producer sees it and like, oh, I'll just apply for that position. Hopefully it works out for them, right? So that's that. And then finally, Denzel gave me this, who my favorite actor. Again, we argue about who's the best actor. I think we got a conversation about this way better than we'll talk about that. But he said this: dreams without realities are just dreams, right? So if you're not posting, if you're not creating, if you're just living, then you're actually not doing anything on those social media platforms. So take that to the next level of like progressing within those dreams that you want to do. So
love it, man.
Posting a picture is important. Keep it professional, right? It's not your Instagram feed. You shouldn't be, chugging a beer or whatever the case may be. Keep it professional. It adds a human approach to it, right? If I see that you're wearing a New York Yankees hat in your profile picture, I'll reach out. Like as a huge Yankee fan, I would love to connect. Are you a Yankee fan? And sometimes that common ground would allow people to interact with you, right? Or you might have a photo in front of Brooklyn Tabernacle. And you're like, hey, I'm a member of Brooklyn Tab. Like, we'll love to connect. I didn't know you were in front of you went there, right? Or whatever, right? Someone who's at a New Jersey Nets or Brooklyn Nets game. You're like, oh wow, like didn't realize you were a Nets fan. We'd love to connect and have a conversation with you. So photos are important.
Love it. Got another one. What should we not put in our LinkedIn?
It's not Facebook. I love these statuses, but it's not Facebook, right? Stop complaining. Like, don't be careful what you're posting in terms of like statuses. Like, don't complain about a job. Don't complain about your day. Keep it very, very professional. And I always say if it's positive, add to it, right? But be very careful about posting very negative things or talking bad about an employer, because everything's searchable, right? Even your job, you probably search it and find it. Everything's searchable. So just be very, very careful. LinkedIn should be your professional, like, representation of you. Whatever you do on the other platforms, that's your. You should keep it the same to be transparent. But some people have different alter egos on Facebook versus LinkedIn. So
I love that. Next one, in the production field, is a master's degree beneficial?
Autumn, yes. What's up, Autumn? So here's what I tell my students this all the time. Your bachelor's degree is probably the most important for the job that you're going after. Wait to get your master's degree until you get to the company because they might pay for it. So we all know how much Sally Mae loves taking for a month. So if you could get your master's program paid for, that's great. The master's program comes in beneficially if you're struggling to find a job and you're going to build strong networking connections in that university. Use Syracuse as an example. They got a great communications program, the Newhouse School of Communications. You'll be able to, if you just say you go there and you're trying to find a job, leverage those networking sessions, right? Connect with your professors, connect with your ADs. That's where the master's program comes really into play. It's not truly where you got your degree from for production positions. It's who you know in those fields and who can help advocate for you. If you're going to school for like technology or some of those other roles, sometimes your degree, the school matters, but for production, it doesn't really matter where you got your degree from. So.
That's very true. And you know, I'm glad I'm so glad that you hit it. And I just want to reiterate to everybody: make sure you drop your questions in the chat in these last few minutes. We want to pull as many gems from Rob as possible. He's happy to hand them to you.
Yeah.
And he wants you to be successful, and he wants you to succeed spiritually and naturally. So, you know, in that same vein, Rob, what is? Can you talk to us about, like, say production is not where you want to be, and you start to think about what are the things that are incredibly attractive to a recruiter? How do you know? Like, what are the things that make somebody like for sure? Oh, we need this person. What is it that when you see them?
Couple different things, right? It's your first impressions matter. It's the same thing if you're trying to go. I always compare myself to like Tinder or Match.com. Like I'm going to connect the person with the manager and hopefully they get married. That's what I joke about, right? So as a candidate, do you meet the qualifications of the role? What experiences do you have to support those qualifications? And then how do you express and showcase that interview process? Every job has specific, like if it's a video producer, right? How do they work in high pressure situations? Do they have the technical skills and do they have the communication skills to be successful in a role? I share this with my students. Be prepared to share examples of those questions, right? So we call it the SAR method: situation, action, and result. So when someone says, John, how do you work in high pressure situations? Don't just say, oh, I do great in high pressure situations. My team counts on me, but that won't get you too far. But if you say, John, I work great in high pressure. I'm just an example, but great in high pressure situations. We had a video edit that was due for the SVP of communications that was due on a Friday. They gave it to me on a Wednesday. I collaborated with all the key stakeholders. Got a rough draft by Thursday. We shot and edited it by Friday. It was on the SVP's desk by Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. Like he was thrilled. The edit came out great. You know, I shared a great example of that. Or when I was a director, one of my first shows that I was in a control room was the Sandy Hook tragedy, right? So I had to get on there super quick, and you know we had all the information. We had to hurry up and execute against it, right? So high pressure situations, I could just share that example right off the bat, right? So come up with examples that will help tell your story of how you're good in that job. People pay a lot of money for that advice right there. So.
When this is over, replay that part. Replay that part. That part will probably send you 10 levels forward.
Yeah.
I wanna ask a resume question, and that is this. We've often heard that recruiters look for specific information in your resume, and if it's not there, they automatically toss it. Can you debunk that for me? Is there, in the first pass, are you looking for the information that's in the post, of the job description inside the person's resume, or what is the level
Yeah.
that you're looking for on that first resume when you first see it?
We actually teach this in the class I'm in. So you have two different types of like searches. You have it's called a like chronological resume, where the recruiter will just search through it manually, like look at your resume, compare it to job description, and base an assumption on your performance there, right? But then there's it's called the ATS. So your resume gets scanned through a system, and then it gets elevated to the top of the profile based on what you've included in your resume. The important thing there for both of those is, say for example, you're looking at the basic qualifications of the job, and we'll use communications or video producer or associate producer for communications as an example. If it says 4+ years of using Adobe Premiere to edit content, somewhere in your resume you want to put Adobe Premiere in your resume, right? You want to put that, hey, I have what you're looking for. If it says communication, so here's an example for on-air roles, it says a link to your reel is important, like you need to include it. There's so many times that we get a resume for on-air position and it doesn't have the reel. They're like, we're not gonna go searching for it. Like, you had the opportunity as your first shot. You read through the job description. It says it in bold, like included a link to your reel, and you didn't do it. So now when you don't get the call, you're like, they never called me. It's like you didn't even follow basic instructions of putting your reel in there. So yes, to your point, John, you should be including pieces of the job description in your actual resume, because it's going to help make your resume float to the top, right? If you're a cashier at Stop and Shop and you're applying for a video production job, you better highlight transferable skills and the technical skills that will make you qualified for that position to help get you at least a conversation. Right? That's what your resume is for. If you think, I share this analogy with my students. Your resume is the key to the house, right? It's going to unlock the door, but the interview is going to let you push that door open, right? So use your resume to unlock the door to get the interview, but for you to walk through that door is going to be the interview that gets you there, and it's going to be that person that sponsors you, right, to help you get across the platform.
There was so much powerful stuff in what you just said.
Yeah.
I want to go over it one more time. Yes, put the things that are in the job description. Make sure you highlight those things in your resume, which also means you highlight those things on your LinkedIn page.
Yeah.
Because the recruiters see it. He's telling you right now, I see it. I'm paying attention for it. Make sure for the job that you want, you have the skills that the job is asking for. And you make sure you highlight those up top, front, and center, because like he's just said, they're not going to go looking for it. Make sure you remain blameless so that God can do everything that he can or will to transform your life and give you what you want. The last thing, I don't know if you want to say anything additional to that.
The only other thing is, like, really pay attention to the minimum years of experience, right? Like, if a job says 8, I will use the far extreme, like 8 years of experience, and you just literally graduated from college, don't apply for it. Like, you're just gonna waste your time, right? And it's gonna be frustrating because you're like, no one's giving me a call. It's like, all right, God's putting you in a situation for a reason, but you're not even like listening to him. You're just going all off and trying to do your own thing at that mark. So
we got one more.
Yeah, that's fine. So I share this with leaders all the time too. If you have enough experience to go on 2 pages, that's fine. Keep it 2 pages, but don't try to cram everything in so it's in 1 page and you're missing key information on that 1 page. So it's a delicate balance, right? If you could fit everything on 1 page, that's perfectly fine. But if you need 2, that's perfectly fine as well. Anything after 2, I would stay away from. Think about this. If a video is on Facebook that's 7 minutes long, are you going to watch the full 7 minutes? You're going to only watch the first 2, right? Is your resume 3 pages long? You're probably going to look at the first 1.5, 2 pages, and then you're not going to care about the 3rd page. The references available upon request, references, take those off, right? You're just wasting space on your resume. If they want it, they're going to call it anyways, whether it's upon your request or not. So don't even list it there. So.
No, I love it. Last thing before we get out of here.
Yep.
I want you to lock in and talk to the viewers that may not have gotten a chance to ask a question, but
Yeah.
they're in the rock and the hard place, and they've gotten a lot of no's, and they feel discouraged, and they're not sure if or when this thing is going to happen. Can you give them advice? Let
Yeah.
it be spiritual, let it be mental, and let it be literally, you know, physical action they can do
Yeah.
on how they should be. You should be thinking in this place, and how they, you know, what things they can do to get out of that hard place.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple of, I had like 4 or 5 different tips. The first one is I just started doing this after I saw a stat. Write it down. Write what your goals are. Write it down and hold yourself accountable. Because if you're not going to hold yourself accountable, no one's else going to hold you accountable. So January 1st, my wife and I, we sat down, we wrote down our goals for 2020. What are we? 2021? Yeah, 2021. And we've accomplished almost everything on that list, right? So that's the first one. Hold yourself accountable to those goals. The second one is pray about it. Really, like, start to find scriptures, or start to find videos, or start to find podcasts that talk about, what you're going through, and try to figure out, okay, here's the advice I'm getting. What can I do to start moving forward? Which is the third one, is you got to move forward. You got to, like, you could sit there and you could complain about, I'm a Debbie Downer and I can't do it. Joyce, she shares this example. There was a story in the Bible, and I forget what the full context of it is, but it's someone who was paralyzed, I think, that was at the edge of the pool, and every year, once a year, like, all they had to do was get into that pool, and God would heal them, right? But they laid there for 30 years. Joyce is like, if that was me, every year I would scoot a little bit to the inch, and when it came down to that year, I would just roll over and fall into the pool. It's the same thing in life, right? You got to move inch by inch. It's your life. Your career is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So
That's right.
with that, stop comparing yourself to others, and you got to move inch by inch to, like, that next part of where you're going. And then the fourth thing, we talked about it, leverage your network, right? If the no's are happening, you got to do one of two things: figure out why those no's are happening. Be honest with yourself. Am I applying for jobs that are out of my realm? And do I have enough experience to get to this position? Am I doing a great job in the interview process to sell myself? Do I have a sponsor who's on the other side who is actually advocating for me? Like, you got to start answering these questions for yourself. Like, what am I doing to actually progress to that next step forward? Because if it's none of the above, then that's only you can blame yourself for that situation, right? And then the fifth thing is, really, everything happens on God's timing too, right? We talked about 40 years and then to take 11-day journey. Like, there could be something that you're literally doing everything you can, right? You're praying about it, networking, you're getting sponsored. And you know what? God's probably just like, that door is not going to open. And you got to really be honest with yourself. Like, is this where I truly want to get to? Or should I start to pivot and navigate to a different opportunity? So I know that was like 5 or 6, but
No. Trust me, we're here for all of them. We're
yeah,
here from all of them. First of all, I can't thank you enough, Rob.
no, for sure. This is fun, man. This
So
is a lot of
much. The chat has been blowing up. People are so appreciative, and I knew this was going to be great, but this
yeah,
went way beyond anything I could have ever
for sure.
thought, because
Yeah,
we were able to help. You were able to help so
yeah,
many different people, and even people
yeah,
after that are going to watch the replay of this
yeah,
are going to be blessed by the gems that you gave. I thank you so much for encouraging the people now,
yeah,
because this a next generation are now going to hear what you had to say today and take that, and they're going to find that in
yeah,
this in this notion, in this hard place that they're in.
yeah,
And when they get there, when they hear what you had to say, the gems that they're going to be able to use to get out are going to be astonishing. We'll finish on this. Beautifully said by our leader. It said, write the vision and make it plain on tablets, that he may run who reads it.
yeah,
Just exactly what Rob was just saying.
yeah,
He
yeah,
wrote his vision down, and
yeah,
then he prayed about it. He
yeah.
got with his
It's
wife
a
and said, look, this is what we want to
yeah,
do. Let's go to God together about it.
yeah. it's a law of attraction, right? It's the energy you're going to put out is energy that you're going to get in there, right? That I'm a big firm believer of the law of attraction. I know it's a lot in the Bible about praying and reading through it. You're gonna read what you sow, right? So if you don't put out positive energy in the environment, you're gonna get negative energy from there. But it's honestly, John, to your point, for those people that don't know you, I'm sure a lot of people do know you from this. For those guys that don't, John, don't work if you're not giving 110% with him in a workout. I'm serious. I'm not just joking. Don't even do it, right? Because that, and it's this thing that The Rock used to say, right? If you're going to do 9 reps and you're going to give up at 9, that person's going to, somebody else is going to do 10 reps and they're going to get stronger because of that 10th rep, right? It's the same thing to your point, John. Like when you're working out and you're coaching people through their workouts, you're like, I'm going to push you to that 10th rep and then I'm going to make you go to that 11th rep and then I'm going to make you go to that 12th rep. You're going to hit that 10th when you're like, I didn't think I could do this. But it's that person that's going to be motivating you because you don't want to give up, right? And the same thing in life. Like you're probably at your like 9th hour right now. Like, I can't do anything. Like this sucks. But just go to that 10th hour. Like figure out that 10th hour. Because eventually you're gonna get there and you're gonna move to that 11th hour and you're like, all right, I'm good. So
that's a message right there. That's a message. He had like 3 sermons in this one. It's this one the conversation we had. Y'all better go back and look at it again. But Rob, man, I don't want to hold up any more of your time. I am so grateful. I'm so thankful, ladies and gentlemen. My man Rob Mochi doing his thing, and I just can't. I'm so grateful every single time he's ever shown up for me. Before we even got on this broadcast, years and years in advance. He's my teammate. I run point, he runs shooting guard. Sometimes we switch, and I can always rely on him in battle, man. And today we went to battle on some very, very tough topics, and we came out victorious, and we're helping other people come out victorious. My name is John McCloud. You already know what time it is. This is Temple Talk. I will be back again with another amazing believer doing amazing things to help empower you do another set of amazing things to achieve your goals in Christ. Love is love. I appreciate all of you. Stay strong, and we'll talk again soon.